With releases like Elden Ring, Ragnarok, Bayonetta 3, and a ton more, it's been a good year for gaming. Overwhelming, actually. It can be easy to miss a good game when they all release around the same time in combination with whatever else you got going on in your real life. One game I think will fly under many people's radar is A Plague's Tale: Requiem. This is the direct sequel to the 2019 release A Plague's Tale: Innocence. Innocence was a hardcore stealth game that flew under many people's radar, which is a shame because it was free on Game Pass for years, and don't bother because it ain't free on Game Pass anymore. And it involved the tale of Amicia and her younger brother Hugo, who has the powers to control the rat plague going on in Europe. These powers got the feds chasing them all across France, which led to an epic stealth adventure. That game was more hardcore stealth. It wanted you to play the game slow and steady, and it was very unforgiving for simple mistakes. Fast forward to 2022, and we now have the release of its sequel, A Plague's Tale: Requiem. For those of you unaware, the definition of Requiem is basically a musical composition for the dead during funerals. That is the perfect subtitle for this sequel. If Innocence was A New Hope, then Requiem without a doubt is Empire Strikes Back. What was once a hardcore stealth game has now been transformed into a semi-open world stealth action game with amazing set pieces. This is a welcome change to the franchise and makes total sense in the context of the storyline. Hugo is gaining more control over his rat powers, and Amicia has improved her combat and survival prowess. That being said, fans of the original, don't fret. This is still a stealth game first and foremost. It's just now you're given a little bit more wiggle room on how to solve your problems. Just don't try to lean into the action too much, as this game never hesitates to remind you that you are in control of two children going up against a bunch of armored grown men. It can be a disaster, but a beautiful disaster. This game is easily one of the best looking games of 2022. France's countryside is full of vibrant colors, open fields, and mountainous terrains. The level design is just magnificent in its variety. The gorgeous countrysides are countered by the muddy and grimy castles and towns that the humans live in. There are 4 core elements to Requiem's gameplay. This includes stealth, combat, puzzles, and rat magic. The stealth is fun because it all centers around finding and maintaining light, otherwise the rats will eat you. This allows you to get creative when sneaking around and even using the darkness to your advantage, such as putting out an enemy's light source with your alchemy. Combat has been upgraded. You're able to get more aggressive with Amicia's slingshot and fire alchemy. You're also afforded the option of taking down heavy enemies with knives, but those are scarce resources in the game, so you cannot abuse it. Stealth was a solid challenge. I mean, this game isn't easy, but I wouldn't call it super hard either. Just a fair challenge. There was only one mission late game where I had to climb a mountain full of guards undetected where I got frustrated, and even still, I thugged it out. Hugo's rat magic is front and center in Requiem. Not only does it affect the story, but the combat and stealth as well. Hugo can use rats to perform a wide array of things, such as attacking enemies too far from a light source. Hugo coming into his own is one of the true highlights of the game. My only complaint is I felt like the game didn't give you enough chances to really play with his rat controlling abilities. It felt like the sections were too far and few in between. If there's a third game, I would like to see Hugo become more of a star. Now, you might have thought I forgot about the last element, the puzzles, but you'd be incorrect. Puzzles play a big role in this game, and I have to say I didn't mind them. I'm not a puzzle guy, but the reason they work in Requiem is because they felt like they belonged. You aren't running through waves of enemies in combat to only be randomly met with some random puzzle that halts the pacing of the game. Instead, they're implemented early on and frequently. There's at least a couple per chapter, and they were a fair challenge. I only got stuck on a couple, but most didn't take me long to figure out. The puzzles worked because they were integrated heavily into the story with proper context. I personally love that attention to detail.
It just sounds too good to be true.
Well, of course, nothing is perfect. This game has its faults. One of its biggest faults is actually its biggest strength. I know that sounds strange, but hear me out. One of my favorite things about Plague's Tale: Requiem is every chapter it introduces a new gameplay mechanic. I don't think I've ever seen that before in my 32 years on Earth, and it kept things refreshing and fun, especially since the level design in this game is top tier. The problem is, when you constantly introduce new stuff into the game, it never gives the player a chance to master anything. It was actually overwhelming the number of tools at your disposal. I felt like I spent more time shuffling through the menus trying to remember what I could and couldn't do than just going with the flow. People often complain about repetition, but repetition is needed for consistency. It's up to the player to decide whether or not they like the gameplay loop. That's really the difference between most games you enjoy and games you call boring and repetitive. I felt like I was speed dating the game's new mechanics every chapter. I mean, it's nothing wrong with a casual fling here and there, but I think most people want something they can find consistency in at one point. That's all I'm saying. The middle of the game was a little slow too. I believe believe it was like chapters 9 to 11, it was much more dialogue and story driven, which once again frustrated me because I wanted to test out my new abilities I was unlocking. I also did run into a couple bugs such as falling through the map or getting stuck in the map's geometry, so this game is far from perfect. That being said, Requiem is very generous with its checkpoints, so I never got mad. I had fun 95% of the time I was playing the game. The story is brilliant, it's chock full of epic set pieces, engaging combat, heart-thumping stealth, and solid puzzles. It's just a shame that I know most people will skip this game because it's not one of the big sexy IPs out right now, but if you have some disposable income and you want to try something different, buy Plague's Tale Requiem. You will not be disappointed. Also, it's free on Game Pass, so you might not even need to buy it. And that's all I gotta say. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please consider hitting the like button, subscribe if you're new, and turn on all notifications so you don't miss the next video. Once again, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.